this is the Poglavnik, that is Ante Pavlich, the head of the Ustashi government. That's one of his officials. These are Catholic priests. The Roman Catholic religion was basically the state religion of fascist Croatia. It was nominally independent, but it was really a fascist puppet state. And it was one of the most brutal fascist countries. One of the things that, when we talk about the destabilization of Yugoslavia, one of the things that engendered the brutal reaction by the Serbs to the breakup of Yugoslavia, and they were certainly very guilty of war crimes, but was their memory of what had been done to them. Well, actually, the Serbs have a long historical memory, and they fought for centuries against the Muslims, and they had very harsh experiences under Roman Catholicism. But the Ustashi, the fascist Roman Catholic government of Croatia, was a brutal government. They liquidated Serbs, they liquidated Jews, and they did so in the most brutal fashion. They even horrified the SS. You can talk about the numbers of people who were slaughtered as part of the various atrocities that the fascists committed. You can talk about the rape of Nanking with somebody, maybe 350,000 dead, 80,000 women raped by the Japanese at the rape of Nanking. By the way, directed by Princess Saka, the brother of Emperor Hirohito. You can talk about the millions killed in the Holocaust, the extermination of the Jews by the Nazis. You talk about the millions who died in the counterinsurgency campaigns on the Eastern Front, and the millions who were killed by millions of Soviet citizens killed. But in a way, I think, to understand the horrors of fascism in Europe in World War II, as Eichmann said, he said 6 million, one death is a tragedy, 6 million is a statistic, or 1 million is a statistic. The numbers sometimes can be sort of numbing. The Ustashi killed their victims in the most brutal fashion. They took a deep delight in killing their victims in the most savage fashion. They would engage in beheadings, tongue extractions. At one point when Ante Pavlich, the Poglavnik, traveled to meet Mussolini, he gave him a basket, and what Mussolini thought were oysters. Turned out they were eyeballs of Jews and Serbs who'd been killed in the concentration camps. The largest Ustashi concentration camp was Jasenovac. It's spelled Jasenovac. It was a converted brickyard. And at Jasenovac, I know of somebody who was in there. It's a father. As a matter of fact, if you go into Cupertino, and as you're driving through the Monte Vista section of Cupertino, there's a falafel place called Vivi's. I think it has new ownership now, but for many years it was owned by some former Yugoslavian Jews. KKUP, by the way, one of the stations I work at, is right next to where it used to be, right next to Vivi's, right up the street. So I would eat there from time to time when I was at the station, got to know the people. But the father of the guy who owned that had been at Jasenovac, and at the very center of the camp they had a hospital, and it was located at the center of the camp so the Allies wouldn't bomb it. It was treating, Croatian war casualties. Around the hospital was a children's camp for children only, separated from the adult camp by barbed wire. So sometimes people, and that was the case with the father of the owner of Vivi's, they could see their children behind the barbed wire because their kids were in one camp and they were in another. And one morning, this guy's father woke up and he saw other children wearing his children's clothes and realized they did the killings at night, that his children had been killed the night before. So they always saved the clothes. They were like the Nazis. They tried to make utility of what they could. The Ustashi used to have throat-cutting contests. At Jasenovac, the winner, they carried a long curved knife. I believe it's pronounced Graviso, but it's Graviso is how it's spelled. Big, long, sort of like a scimitar, big, long, curved dagger. And the winner at Jasenovac was a guy named Peter Beržica, who cut through 1,300 throats in a night. He was the throat-cutting record holder. That's quite a piece of work, but the way they used to kill the victims at Jasenovac, it was a converted brickyard, and instead of gassing the victims and then cremating them, they simply herded them into the kilns alive and then locked the door and turned on the kilns. And that's what had happened to this guy's children the night before. Just in terms of savagery, you think about taking a bunch of kids and herding the children into a kiln, and then locking the door behind them and turning on the kiln. That is evil. That is really, really evil. And this was done with the blessings of the church. Often before the Serbs were liquidated, there were forced conversions. Then sometimes they let them live. Often they killed them anyway. But this was the guy who instituted that, Ante Pavelic, last name Pavelic.